Welcome to the advantages and disadvantages of a mixed economy, whereby we're talking about a mixture of both the private and the public in the economy. So let's get going. So the advantages, as you have clearly stated on the characteristics, we have the issue of efficiency, innovation. The private sector profit motive encourages efficiency, innovation, driven economic growth, and technological advancement. Because we talked about if we have these two things in an economy, economic growth and technological advancement, there's a higher degree of efficiency. We are going to have allocative efficiency. We're going to have production efficiency. We're going to have X efficiency. So that's the issue of efficiency and innovation. And also, we have to talk about consumer choice. With the mix of private and public enterprise, consumers are often have a variety of choice in the marketplace. Also, the competition which improve the product quality. Also, as you know, consumers always want to buy products from a company that shows that it's a yardstick of quality. So having a mix of both the private and the public that allows competition and that allows high quality product to be produced at lower prices, which benefits the consumers. That is actually what we say consumer sovereignty. Okay. Then you have social welfare. We talked about the government intervention allowing provision of essential goods and services that addresses the market failure and ensuring broader access to the consumers that are most vulnerable, whereby we have access to healthcare, access to education, access to social welfare. That is the issue of making sure that the disadvantaged get to have certain goods and services to their advantage and then enjoy their economic well-being in the country. Whenever we talk about income distribution, we talk about the issue of having a more equitable distribution of wealth and even reducing of income inequality. Whereby we talk about social programs and progressive tax systems that are help to mitigate income inequality, to make sure that we reduce the gap between the rich and the poor, trying to make sure that there's equal distribution of wealth income in the economy. Every economic agents we have a fair share of the national cake in the country. Then we have flexibility. We talk about the issue of combination of the market mechanism and the government intervention provided flexibility, allowing the economy to adapt to conditions and challenges. As you know, if the market left to for the market forces to operate, we are going to likely going to see much more efficiency, more equitable distribution of resources to them by allowing the Adam Smith price mechanism to operate using its incredible functions. We are going to have allocation of resources, perfect allocation of resources. Then regulations to prevent monopolies, because as you know, monopolies were having one source supplier of a product, so we are prevented to having monopolies. Well, the government can regulate industries to prevent them from becoming monopolies, ensuring fair competition and protecting consumers from exploitation. So the government is playing as a middleman, as a referee, to make sure that there is fair competition and the protection consumers from exploitation. Then moving forward with the disadvantages, by having complexity and bureaucracy, the dual nature of the mixed economy can lead to complexities and bureaucratic challenges as both private and public sectors coexist, because there's always going to be contradicting each other, because the other one focuses on the government side, when the other side focus on the private side, or the private individuals, which have their own ethics, their own way of operating businesses, which is going to be open to for them to continue to find way in which they can have a meaningful dialogue is going to be a huge issue, because there's a dual nature of the mixed economic lead to complexity, because whereby there are two different distinct economic systems which are combined together. Then we have to talk about the inefficiencies, whereby the government intervention. Do we know, would the government be fully informed whenever it's intervening in the economy? Because we always know that the government lacks the knowledge to be able to fully intervene in the economy, make sure that it provides a much more equitable distribution of goods and services. If no collaborated, let's look at the can introduce inefficiencies, particularly if decisions are driven by political consideration rather than economic principles. Usually, that's always what happens, whereby decision making will be based on political consideration rather than economic principles, whereby they are not adopting policies that promote much more economic policies that promotes much more equitable distribution of goods and services, wherever they will be able to address efficiencies. They're going to have a political agenda, political consideration, because by their core nature, the command system is based on political considerations. Then we have the potential for corruption. The intersection between government and business can create opportunities for corruption of obviously because if the regulatory framework are not robust or if there is insufficient oversight. Because we are having the mixed economy whereby we're having government ownership and private ownership. So there's bound to have insufficient oversight because there's no way the government can fully understand the how the private sector actually operates. At the same time, there's no way that the private sector will going to understand how the government fully operates. That can promote potential for corruption because there's an always loopholes in the way in which the system is going to be made, whereby we are going to have a lot of tax evasion and tax avoidance, whereby they will find a way to which the two in terms of the decision making, in terms of even the law making, there are always going to be loopholes that's going to promote corruption. Then conflicts between objectives because there's always going to be conflicting between objectives because the government is saying we want more equitable distribution, but the free market is saying we are saying that to those who have the money to buy this particular good is going to be the one who consumes it. You see how they have conflict of objectives, whereby the government has objectives of not for profit maximization, whereby the private sector have the objective of profit maximization. So the balancing of those interests of private sector and the public welfare can lead to conflicts or in policy objectives because the policies objectives are going to be different, making it challenging to achieve optimum outcomes for all stakeholders, whereby it's going to be a very difficult thing for them to actually come together and having a way in which they can able understand each other's shortcomings and always going to arrive to decisions that are going to achieve optimal outcomes for all stakeholders. So the benefit of both worlds is going to be very difficult. Moving forward, we have dependence on government policies. Economic actors may become overly dependent on government policy intervention, potentially stifling entrepreneurship in individual initiative. That's how we end up having poverty traps, whereby they are being given benefits by the government, whereby they are no longer becoming entrepreneurs because they feel like the benefits will be taken away. The unemployment benefits will be taken away if I become much more entrepreneur and create a new business. And so that they will not want to be entrepreneurs, they will just decide to say, I'm not going to be entrepreneur because the government is already taking care of me. That's how that's how economic agents will be trapped in the poverty cycle. So that's the dependence of government policies to make sure that the government will always come and rescue us. Then also have risk of over-regulation. Because regulation is not always about the laws. Excessive regulation can stifle economic growth, whereby you are always regulating. Always regulating. That stifles economic growth. Because economic growth, we are talking about a shift of aggregate demand to the right, whereby the economy is allowed to flourish, whereby people are demanding more of the products and innovation. So, hindering the dynamism of the private sector. So, over-regulation, every time, whenever the private sector plays any significant role in the economy, you're always arriving in putting on your regulations, that's the risk of over-regulation. That stifles economic growth. That limits innovation. Because innovation doesn't need to have boundaries. Innovation is supposed to be let be innovation. Then we move on to political influence on economy. Political consideration may influence decision making because politics is very difficult to separate from the common system because it's solely based on the government being the one making decisions. So leading to suboptimal outcomes if policies prioritize short-term political gains over long-term economic stability. That's how we affect the future generation. The future generations are not going to benefit because if you prioritize political short-term optimum gains over long-term economic sustainability, because sustainability is always about you ensuring that you use the resources available and also leave some of the resources for the future generations to also be able to utilize those resources. That's whereby you have short-term political gain over long-term economic stability. That's always the issue of having political influence on the economy. You look at the short-term gains against the long-term economic sustainability goals. Then looking at the summary as we conclude this mixed economy is being an interesting debate. In practice, the effectiveness of a mixed economy depends on how well it strikes a balance between market force and government intervention. I've mentioned this before, but we just have to find a balance between the market forces and government intervention. Because countries who successfully use the mixed economy often implement policies that leverage the strength of both systems while addressing their respective shortcomings. So it's always the idea of using the benefits of both worlds, but also looking at the shortcomings of using the strength of both systems to make sure that you have a way in which you address uh, the shortcomings of operating such a system. So you have to always bear that in mind when you are using a mixed economy. So thank you so much for listening to this called systems, market systems that we're going through, those various systems that exist in the world. So thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next video.